Hi, everybody. Welcome to WonderCon 2021. This is the virtual panel for artists for Image Comics. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Marla Eizik. I'm the talent liaison at Image Comics, and I have a bunch of very talented artists here to talk about their process, a little bit about their new series coming out with Image, and just get into it. Tell us all your secrets. That's all we need to know. Just going to introduce everybody really quick. We have Leandro Fernandez. He's the artist and co-creator on The Old Guard, which is actually a film it was adapted into a film that's streaming on Netflix right now, which is great. Yay! It's really good. We also have Afua Richardson, who is known for her work on Black Panther: World of Wakanda and Lovecraft Country. Her new book, Aquarius, the Book of Mer, is coming out in May. Very excited for that. Yay. We have Alexandre Tefenkgi. He's the artist and co-creator on the book, The Good Asian, which is coming out in May from Image. Really amazing. Geoff Shaw is the artist and co-creator on Crossover with Donny Cates. That's, I think, issue 4 is coming out soon, if it's not out already.
Just yesterday.
Yeah, just yesterday. Oh, congrats. Yay.
Yes.
And Trish Forstner, she is the co-creator and artist on Stray Dogs. Number 1 just came out yesterday. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Yay. So we're all here. We made it. We kind of talked about this already, but it is like interesting that we're all doing virtual panels now. I don't know if any of you all prefer doing these things live or doing them virtually, but I was saying it's nice that like we don't have to like shake a million people's hands and like potentially get con cred and feel gross afterwards.
That's true. I miss the interactions. I don't miss the sweaty palms. Yeah.
I haven't had that experience as a newcomer to all of this. I've done smaller panels, and smaller groups. So yeah. This would be like the first large virtual thing I've done, and it's so far so good.
It's pretty great, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely miss the in-person cons too. There's a lot of cool people that you get to meet. And the fans are always so great.
It was funny. I was sitting on this panel and I kind of felt like it was just a panel of really amazing women, because I get thrown on a lot of like women in comics panels. But they were all really, really awesome. So I wasn't complaining. But as they were giving their responses, they were confident and they gave just amazing answers. But meanwhile, like under the table, they're like ripping their nails off.
No.
like grabbing little like focus toys,
totally.
Like okay.
Ripping napkins apart. Oh my god!
It's like it's not just me.
Oh no, that is the funny thing about doing these kinds of things, is you can see like everybody's little ticks. Like I know at San Diego they give candy. The like con people just like give out candy on the panel tables, and they're like, why? People are just like nervously eating candy. I don't know. It works. The sugar high might make the questions easier. Who knows? Well, I have some we were just going to go through a bunch of different stuff, start with some general questions, and then move into more specific things about tone and mood, and then kind of about the comic industry in general. I know there's a lot of people that want to know, how do you get started in comics as a comics artist? So it'd be interesting to hear that from all of you. But first, I guess I kind of want to know what the pros and cons are of creating a story, creating art that works in tandem with words. So it's different than just, a painting or a drawing, but actually having to create a whole world with a script involved. And I guess, yeah, just the pros and cons of that. If anybody has any ideas.
Can I start? Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah. Well, it's a nice question because it's when you work creating something, some characters mostly that will interact with the script. It's not only about drawing how they're gonna look, their faces, their costumes, their bodies, and so on. I mean, I think the good deal is to work with somebody you have a good chemistry, because once you start dropping some line and some concepts, these guys start to have their own lives. So you go back to the writer, and I'm sure the writer will receive something different than what he thought, even if he gave you specific instructions. So this is coming back and forward that it makes a character having his own life, and it's very interesting because as long as you're working on the history and the story, you start to find out new things about the character, and yes, suddenly it gets shaped by itself about the situations he's going through, and it happens a lot that it finally look different than when you started working with it, because the process, the situations change them a lot, at least it's from my perspective. I don't know if anyone has another thing to say.
No, I agree with you. You know, it helps for me personally. I have a good relationship with the writer for Stray Dogs, and the characters started off a little bit more simple, and now that we know a lot more about them through the script, evolution process, it made drawing them add more depth to the story, which was really a neat thing to experience.
This is this book with Image is the first time in maybe 15 years or so that I've created or I'm illustrating a comic that I'm writing. And the rest of the time, I'm just responsible for aesthetics. So I do have to keep in mind the lettering as almost like another character that needs to be considered. But this time, I'm my editor. I have an editor to make sure I don't, go off the rails. But if it's good, it's my fault. If it's bad, it's my fault too. So
that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, but I'm up for the challenge. But I feel like though, when you're new to writing as an illustrator, you want to put in way too many words, and then when you get to your layouts, you're like, oh no, all of that's got to go. You make fun of people like you who put in way too many words. Show it, don't tell it. And so the editing process for me is a lot more stringent. I'm a horrible editor to myself, but with the end result being a more fluid story. And I started lettering my thumbnails so that I don't create a really elaborate piece and then cover it with a word bubble.
You don't have anybody to blame.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just you.
That's true. I'd second what Leandro said about having a trust with the writer is always a perk. Sometimes you don't know the writer very well. And, sometimes, like Donnie and I we've worked together for so long. He barely has to write a sentence before I know what he's saying, so I can just go right to it. And he trusts me to interpret his script. His scripts usually, changes happen here and there, and tweaks, like you said. It's a process. It's an evolution from the script, and it doesn't always necessarily have to be so literal. But I recently, in the past, I've had to do Marvel style scripts. I don't know if everybody knows what watching knows what that is. Where you just, the writer gives you an outline of the page, and you have to do most of the storytelling yourself. And then you might not even know what the words are, which is, some people prefer that. I personally like the dialogue, especially when you're dealing with characters that you know really well.
Yeah.
It affects the acting. But it's also kind of freeing too. In certain like action scenes, it can be really fun. But when it gets down to the dialogue scenes, it can be kind of challenging. But then again, that always helps to have a writer who you trust and trusts you.
Yeah, for me, it's also a work in progress. With the writer, there's the script and the starting point. We get to a point where we agree on a design for the character or for the architecture, and then from that, with the story and the script and how I get to work with the character, it evolves, and then it's organic. I don't think I can, on my end, I can design something and it won't change until the end. It like for the first issue, the character changed a bit from the fourth one, and I think it's great because it's not set in stone. It's organic. It's alive. So yeah, I let things happening, like happy accident sometimes.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that starting from the beginning all the way to the end, like things are going to change. Just as like when a writer is writing a script or writing the story, like things are going to organically shift from like the original idea that they had. I imagine it's the same with the art. And also just like kind of Geoff, like what you're saying, like having that trust with the writer to be like, okay, this is what the script says, but I'm also envisioning this character to do this instead, so I'm going to draw it this way. Yeah.
And panels, so sometimes a beat isn't quite in the script. One, there may be 5 panels, but there's this beat on the page that really needs an extra panel to sell.
Right.
Or maybe a panel, 2 panels can be condensed into one, but again, yeah, that comes through in the thumbnail process. And usually I've never gotten a lot of pushback with that because it makes sense.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I get it. I might not have known that being the writer and not having drawn it out, but now that you explain it to me, like I get that. Yeah. Do you? Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, I guess at the end of the day, it's just about the flow and making sure that you do the best job possible. Yeah,
you both have that end goal of wanting to make the best story that you can. So this applies to some of you, but how do you illustrate worlds and creatures that have no basis in reality? I know that you're this definitely applies to you. I mean, I don't know, mermaids could be real, we don't know. It could be a thing.
In the book Aquarius, the Book of Mer, I'm doing a modern retelling of mermaid myths and legends from all over the world. And some of these stories have very, very general descriptions. So there's no visual basis for it. So on one hand, that's very freeing because that means that I can create whatever I want. And then on the other hand, I have to think, okay, well, I don't want to misrepresent something from either my own or someone else's culture. Like, I don't want to mess this up. So how do I ground this design in reality, but then stay true to what the mythos is? So one example, in Nova Scotia in Canada, the Mi'kmaq Indians of Eastern Canada have a legend about something called a Sabawayung, or a halfway person. And it's a person who, like it sounds, either, the top half is human and the lower half is fish, they live halfway above the water and then halfway below it. But there aren't a lot of descriptions, and there are a few anthropologists who went to visit some of the Mi'kmaq really early on in the 1800s and early 1900s and wrote about what they said that they saw, or accounts that other people said that they personally had with these creatures. They either washed up on the beach, or some of them in some instances had their children taken by them. But they didn't describe them other than they were childlike, had long fingernails, and looked like they spent too much time underwater. So I'm like, okay, great. What am I going to do with this? So I started looking into the animals that live in the area, the aquatic animals, the ecology, the different markings of the creatures that live close by, as well as something that would be amphibious, which is something that can live above and below water. So I started looking into frogs and different kinds of frogs that live in the icy waters of Eastern Canada. So I put together my idea of what this creature might look like.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. And there's another one, a creature called an Injuzu, which apparently stopped the production of a dam in Zimbabwe.
That's awesome.
In 2014. So,
wow.
Yeah, super recent. Like there was a big industrial project being done, and the workers came running out of the dig site saying like, there's an Injuzu down there, we are not going.
Wow.
And the of course the head of the contractor is just like, okay, what did you see? What are you talking about? And so they start describing the thing that they saw, they think they saw, and they're like, you sure it just wasn't a animal of some kind? I'm like, no, it looked at me. You know, they're describing this like, I was like, was it just a homeless man? Like, I don't know, what are you finding? But they hired somebody else to do the work, and they came back, said, look, I don't know what's down there, but I'm not going. So then they hired like European workers who had never heard of Injuzu. They sent them down there, and they came back and they said, look, I don't know what's down there, but we're not going back.
We're not messing with it.
So I'm trying to like pull from different stories and legends, and even in some case like Coast Guard reports.
Totally.
They very embarrassingly had to say, yeah, this thing was the size of a bus and growled at me and slithered back into the water. And just different things, just different animals and so on that would exist in the area.
Yeah, that's a great technique to like, find real world research and and then do your own like biological research and kind of tie that together.
If it's too far outside of the realm of possibility, then it's not that believable. Like it has to physically make sense, even if it's really out there.
Yeah. Leandro, I know that your book deals with immortality, which also, who knows, maybe that could be a thing. But how do you work with that? Like, how do you and Greg kind of create something has no basis in what we know as reality?
Well, actually it does. I mean, I was thinking that regarding that question, how would you work on something that you have to create from the scratch with no basis on reality? And I was thinking more on the kind of, for example, science fiction stories and that kind of things that I've, at least from my side, I would have some serious problems to work with that, because it happens to me mostly recently in the past years that the reality goes faster than what I can understand and keep myself updated. So if I have to work with science fiction right now, I will screw things up. I'm afraid, because I will do things that were not only already invented, that could be already useless anymore years ago, because everything goes so fast. But in regards to what we did for the old guard, it actually takes more relationship with the things that actually exist or existed, which it's a different kind of work, because you have to gather a lot of information, a lot of references, and I love that. Above all, trying to be accurate with the historical backgrounds and everything, the uniforms, the guns, the landscapes, everything. It's a really hard work to put all the things together into one sequence, and but that's what it's all about. I mean, as we're telling a story, we want the people to feel they are into that place. It's something that I could have experience when I was I said when they were making the movie. It's the same kind of work they do. They gather things to make people realize through the visuals they're in any particular place and time. And it's a fun thing. I love to work on that. It's really fun, interesting. I love that kind of work.
Yeah, it's fun to research, I'm sure.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, Trish, I know it's like for your book, kind of having the point of view of dogs. That's also kind of a stretch of the imagination.
There was no shortage of inspiration. I have an Alaskan Malamute, and I used her as a reference for a lot of posing. But I also draw a lot of inspiration and a lot of my knowledge and what I put into the characters for acting from old animation, 80s and 90s. I say old for 80s and 90s, and it makes me just sad.
But it's not older now.
Well, only now. Yeah. Well, I use that old style of animation as a reference. It's I've always found myself fascinated with animation and the fact that you can make a character move with paper and a pencil. So when I was creating my characters, I wanted them to feel that way. I wanted them to feel like they could just come alive and talk to you, or talk to each other and not to you. But yeah, that's that's old animation. I researched a lot. Well, I didn't have to research. I have stacks and libraries and volumes of old animation reference books. And it's readily available. Just thank you, internet. And think of like All Dogs Go to Heaven, the contrasting characters with the environments, the Secret of Nim. That's another one. Got cute little mice, very crazy adventure, dark story, an enemy that is like humanity, and they are all faceless, all these people, except for the little boy. There's like a little boy with a face, and he's, he traps the mouse in the thing. But you never see their faces. You don't see people interacting with them. And that's kind of the feeling we wanted. You want to see this world from the dog's eye, like what they think and how they're feeling. So,
yeah.
Lots of research did.
I'm sure. Yeah. I had, reading the first issue, I had like so much nostalgia, because it was just like, it just felt like 90s and early 2000s cartoons. And yeah, it was great. Kind of jumping off of that, I guess I'm curious how you all cultivate your own personal style or brand. Trish, I mean, like in a lot of your work, it seems like that kind of animation style is super prevalent, and it's
that's I started just drawing what I liked, like, oh, that's a cool cartoon character, let me draw that. Or that's a cool superhero, let me put my spin on that. And it's mostly like an amalgamation of just Disney, well, Disney, Warner Brothers, old cartoons. You get your, Schultz and Jones, and, comic strip, Sunday morning comic strip artists. I had a lot of influence from all of that. And I just kind of self-taught. I mean, I wasn't I didn't go to school for anything to develop that. I just kind of pulled it from that. A lot of people ask why you don't draw why don't you draw people that look like people? I mean, I draw people. They look like people, but they don't look like if I was drawing you, I wouldn't be able to draw you. It would just
realistically,
it would just look like a person. It would look like a person, but it would look like you. And they asked me that, and I'm like, there's enough realism in the world. I just want to have fun. I want to draw cute animals and cute stories. Well, this isn't a cute story, but
yeah,
it's
a dark story.
It's still got my spin on that. Within the characters. So the story is great. Turns that whole thing right on its head. Turns that whole idea.
Right.
Cute animal story turns it right on its head.
It totally. Geoff, I'm curious how you kind of made your style. Like you've been an artist for a while now, a little bit.
Yeah, I've been doing it. I think it was 7 or 8 years now professionally. Yeah, it's evolved. It's definitely evolved. I think you start out, I had a fine art bachelor's education, and then a master's in comics. So I had a foundation of realism and naturalism, and as you get into comics, it is daunting, and that's like the biggest question a lot of students have is how do I pick a style when there's so many styles, and without copying somebody. And you do copy in the beginning is the thing. You find your biggest influences, and those kind of shape your initial style, but at some point it just, you deviate. You find the things you liked about that and the things you didn't, and you just naturally veer into a different direction. And I've personally I have a lot of fun. I think the story, for me, the story affects the way I want to draw something. And I have a lot of fun experimenting with different styles. I think each book that I do I try to give it a different look to match the tone of the story. Because what I did with, say, I don't know, like Thanos, a Marvel style, isn't necessarily going to work with God Country or certainly. Right. Those are just totally hugely different. And I have a lot of fun kind of changing it. But you still, it's funny, no matter how you try and change your work, you still you come through it. Like, I think I've heard, at least people have told me, they see me in everything I do, even as hard as I try to change it, there I am.
Yeah.
I think a lot of artists have a nice, like a signature look. It's something that you draw well, that other people know you draw well, and they see you in there, and they're like, oh, I see you. What are you doing?
Can't run from yourself.
Yeah. I feel like a big indicator of that is if I see a cover and I know who the artist is without seeing their signature or like seeing their name on the book, like I'm like, oh yeah, that's clearly this person. Then yeah, they've really narrowed that down.
And it can be scary too. I remember just every time I approach a new book, I'm a little nervous about, switching it up, because I know some artists like to stick very strictly to their brand, which totally works. There's no wrong way to do that, but experimenting is scary. And I that's kind of fun, trying a new style. I every time, like a month or two before the book comes out, I'm terrified people are gonna hate it. I tried something that I wasn't confident with, or I was confident, but I don't know if it was really a good idea. And I think that's creatively, that's a really fun place to be, the unknown. If you're not doing something a little risky,
right,
then you're not really pushing yourself.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I try to make each project that I work on a little bit of a learning experience, not so much that I'm stressing myself out and I'm leaning on something that I'm not strong in under a deadline.
Yeah.
Like I was asked to work on a Hulk, a cover for Totally Awesome Hulk. And I'm like, man, I don't draw a lot of like super ginormous muscles. And I'm like, today is going to be the day. Like, to this. And I'm going to do a whole bunch of figure drawing and look at every UFC fight I can stomach and sit there and just draw all the traps and just go on ahead and try my best to go in the direction of my fears, because why am I avoiding that? Because I don't know how to do it well. I might as well, start just repeating and practicing, and eventually I'll get better at it. But if I don't start, then I'm never going to do it. And a lot of times I'll look at other artists, of course, but not to copy their style, but just to understand their technique and see what about it I like. Is it their composition? Is it the way they're coloring? Is it what lines they choose to represent volume? And even though I like it, do I want that to be a part of my work? And one thing that I think is different about the way I work, I feel like it's sometimes a hindrance too, is I work in Adobe Illustrator because like Trish, I'm self-taught, but a lot of my early jobs were graphic design jobs. And instead of, drawing something by hand and then having to scan it and then redraw it again in Adobe Illustrator, I'm like, okay, well, let me just figure out how to finalize in Illustrator so I don't have to do this again. And so it was a way to kind of like cut down my process, but also I loved the look of animation, especially French animation or a lot of sci-fi, heavy metal. Like the palettes were different. The choice to color a line instead of just leaving it black was it was something that I really enjoyed and I wanted to bring into my work. And it was a lot easier to do that in Illustrator. And also, when you have a lot of graphic design jobs, where you have to have something that can be blown up or reduced and still maintain resolution. So it was something that made a lot of sense for me, but it also gave me something that I think makes my work look a little different than other people. I mean, it's such a daunting program. Now I'm learning Clip Studio, which has a lot of what Illustrator does, but I also have tried to take what I've learned as a watercolor painter and incorporate that. Like, how do I turn these Sumi ink brush strokes into digital brushes so I can have this organic feel in a digital medium? So I keep trying to find ways to like take different textures of things. Like when I lived in New York, I used to go around and like take photos of like peeling paint and weird things and turn those into Photoshop brushes. And people are like, what are you doing? Like, why are you taking pictures of the stairs? What's there?
What are you seeing here?
Right? I'm like, should I be afraid? But yeah, it's fun to experiment, and it's fun to sort of view other people's styles and admire them, but also be like, well, even if I drew exactly like them, I wouldn't be happy because I have my own thing to say. So I treat art style like I do music. Learn the song first and, play the music that you like, but improvisation or your style will come later once you start to figure out what it is that you like and what you don't like in your style. People sometimes go to style first and they're just like, I'm going to go to anime right away. And it's like, you can, but the fundamentals are really important too. Perspective, anatomy, color theory, composition, gesture drawing, those things are essential no matter what style you're in.
Yeah. Alex, what about you? How did you come up with your own style?
Oh, I come from the European market originally. So I read a lot of French books, French comics books. Like, I don't know if you have read Asterix et Obelix. It's a really popular in France, and it's like a comedy book, and it's the first book I ever read when I started to draw. That was the first book that made me start to draw, and it's far away from how I draw, but it's something that triggered a will to draw and a will to tell a story. So yes, it can start from a point and finish to very far from where you started. Here with the Good Asian, it's a crime noir book, and in France we don't use black as much as in comics. So I had to come up with a style, with my style, but tweaked to match the project, and it was a great challenge for me. Every project is an opportunity to make your craft evolve and to learn. So it in a way it's a challenge, but it's an exciting challenge. And you have a base, you have your style, you have a base, you have your anatomy, as they said, you have your gesture, you have everything, but you try to find a voice, as a style, a voice that could match with the project in your hands right now. It might mean that you have to tweak a little bit, but at the end of the day, that's good. It will work with the project.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of artists are hesitant to like copy someone else's work when they're just trying, especially when they're first starting out, like, oh, my work won't be original because I'm like taking a lot of guidance from this book that I love. But it changes so much, like you're saying, like it changes so drastically from beginning to end. And especially as you evolve as an artist, your own style is going to come through.
Yeah, totally. A lot of it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was saying from the influences, your influences are going to change too. I mean, mine, the people I was a fan of when I was a teenager, that I looked up to and wanted to be, are not the influences, my biggest influences now. And I'm always finding new weird, I think a really good thing to do is just keep your eyes open and read as many different books as you can, because I'm learning, I'm finding new artists every day, not just through like Instagram, but like a lot of it's through Instagram. Like that's a huge resource. I bought like 15 books this year from artists that I had no idea existed. And the more files that you absorb or just look at, you're going to find things that you like that you didn't know you were going to like. It's like food, you have to try new stuff. And so I think that will also inform your sensibilities. And when you see that just how many options there are, I think you're naturally not going to stick to one thing, or at least the art that you thought you wanted to make in the beginning might be totally different 10, 15 years from now.
Yeah.
It happens that I feel too, regarding the style, that it's also a matter of time. I mean, time being sit down every day and working and drawing. I mean, it comes to the surface by its own. I mean, once you're every day drawing like 8-10 hours a day, I mean, the true you will come out. I mean, you can't copy somebody else all the time. it's understandable at the beginning when you're trying to find a way, but once that you spend a lot of time, is something that it just comes up by itself. At least is how I see it. I mean, and you just let it go that way. I mean, it happens that way.
Yeah. And then also to assume that just because you're observing someone's work and you're studying it, they have maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 years of experience. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do exactly what they do just because you're observing them. It's like, you know, you can play Jimi Hendrix's, guitar riffs. It doesn't make you Jimi Hendrix. It's okay. It's okay. But as long as you're not plagiarizing, it's okay to study. It's okay to admire. It's okay to take tutorials and also look at life and look at reference, because as much as we are making things from our imagination, we are grounding that in our visual banks. So as an illustrator, if I'm not doing studies from life, I almost feel like I start to deteriorate a little bit because I'm working from an empty well.
Sure.
Whenever I have like artist block or something where I feel like, man, these things that I'm drawing are just not coming out well, then I have to stop and kind of get back to basics and let me just do some timed figure drawing so I can get all the ugly drawings out now and then draw what I see. And then when I go to draw from my imagination, it's not that I'm working from reference to be able to make a better drawing, but I've just finished practicing drawing something that I see, or taking something that I see and making it tangible. Now I can take something from my mind and make it tangible. So
what Afua says is interesting, because each artist is like makes a deal with the reader and say, okay, this is how I do the things, and you study them to see the codes they use to show something. So you are going through their view to make anything, when it's interesting that you get it straight from reality to create your own codes in everything you draw.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It kind of, not like a formula, I guess, but like kind of your own personal one, and with room to grow and change as you grow.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like talking about inspirations and influences. I'm always curious how people kind of keep their creative drive going, especially now that we're living in a pandemic. Can't really go outside. We're doing this online. Like it's hard. I know for a lot of my creative friends, it's been hard for them to focus and gain that inspiration. And we're so lucky to be living in a time where we have all the technology that we do, and we can get those influences online. But I'm curious for each of you specifically, how you kind of keep that creative drive and focus and just the love of making art alive during this wild time.
I think for me, it's about the hustle. I mean, I just right now, I just want to keep my mind focused on something else. So whether it's drawing stray dogs, which it has been for the last 2 years, or drawing the next My Little Pony comic, or the next, whatever adorable fun thing that might actually brighten someone's day,
totally,
or bring someone a smile or whatever. It's I find my inspirations that way. I mean, we're fortunate, for me, it's been fortunate that we can kind of all meet this way and stuff like that, because in my daily life I can't get away to come to conventions as much as I'd like, or do any of this. So I just make myself available to take on that next project, or refocus my efforts learning how to draw robots or learning how to draw something else. Yeah.
As an artist, you kind of self-quarantine anyway.
Yeah. We're just kind of
Also, I think I've heard,
That's what I was gonna say.
Not much has changed. It's kind of the same.
Times 1,000.
I realized there was a
I think
pandemic.
that's what makes us hard to understand.
Yeah, we're the darkest timeline. Welcome.
I was just gonna say, like, I think what makes artists hard to understand sometimes is that I think a lot of people think like, oh, well, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. It's like, that is a lie. That's such a super lie. like this is still work.
It's still a job,
but it's work,
yeah.
right, that you have to self-motivate to do. Like, it doesn't really matter that you don't feel like doing it. At the same time, if I'm really feeling flat, I have to change my body before I can change my mind. So if I have to put on stupid music and dance around like an 80s movie, then that's what has to happen.
To just get yourself physically out of that space.
Yeah, because sometimes it's just your body saying like, this is not right, we need to move our legs, and it kind of makes you down and then not really in the mood to create. And you kind of have to give yourself breaks. This is a really unusual time. So expecting yourself to perform the same way you would if you could just go outside and people not look at you like you're an evil death threat, then
I think we should put a label on every books that have been done during the pandemics. So please don't judge us. As you used to do. I mean,
this page in particular, I was wearing the same pajamas for 5 days straight. So just like, deal with it.
Yeah.
No,
like all the colors are black. No, but
I was having a down day today. Sorry, guys. On this page.
Yeah, absolutely. I read a whole bunch of sad music last year.
It's a really difficult time, and I mean, everybody's stressed. There's a lot of people who's really having a hard time everywhere in the world. So it's understandable that it's getting really difficult to get focused. So I think, I mean, we as artists, we love what we do. I am sure I can talk for anybody in the room, in everywhere. But at the beginning, when I started working, I had the idea that if you're a professional, you have to work. I mean, no matter what, you have to do it every day. I mean, you have the deadline. I mean, come on, not get out and not get up. I mean, sit down and work, do the work. I mean, do it on the schedule and everything. But the truth is that with the years, I realized it doesn't work that way. I mean, you can do it, you can finish it, and you can deliver on time. But you have to be. I've started to believe in desperation, if we want to call it that way. I mean, you have to be in a good mood. You have to like what you do. That it doesn't happen all the time. I mean, if you're enjoying the project you're working on, you're lucky. I mean, there are some times that you have to pay your bills, and what you're doing is not the perfect fit. So it's a whole thing to get the right motivation to work. It's not easy.
And guilt also. For a lot of reasons, but I think knowing, especially, we're very fortunate. I feel fortunate to be able to work right now. I just, every time I am having an inspiring day, which happens frequently, you just don't want to do it. I just remind myself how absolutely lucky we are that there's so many people out there, so many people without work right now. And I'm sure we all know people that are struggling. So Yeah, it makes me feel really guilty, and then I get to work pretty quick after that. But it's fun. And exercising also, active, because we're so sedentary, I think, keeping, endorphins, help for just about everything. Health and motivation and taking breaks. I think at home, it's really easy to feel like that you should be working because you're at home just in general. If
I'm working right now.
Right. So taking mental breaks, I have to force myself to take at least a day off a week, where I don't think about working. You need to recharge your battery. No, it's not inexhaustible.
Yeah.
You can't get what you don't have.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but when I feel down and when I don't feel like working, I go on Instagram or I go on Pinterest and I watch other artists work, and I think, wow, that's great, and it lifts my mood, and I want to do as great as them, and my passion comes back because I see passion through their art, so it echoes with my passion. So
Totally.
yes, it lifts me up.
Yeah.
Cool.
The thing is, if you go to Instagram or Facebook or something, is that you have to keep focus on watching the artists you like and not argue about politics or that kind of thing.
That's the key, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
With the strangers.
Yeah. I've started like saving bits of art, like inspiration or how to like tutorial videos to a collection, and then I just go to that collection and then scroll through that, so then I can just bypass all the other stuff.
Yeah, because you lose a lot of time either way.
Yeah, totally.
I started doing warm-up sketches and warm-up drawings because I feel like so much of my work is going towards a particular objective that I have to kind of change my mind about what I'm working on sometimes if I'm working on a project that's really hard. So I'll do something that I won't judge at all. I don't be like, look, I don't even know if I'm going to share this anywhere, but I've got this done. It wasn't for anything. It's just, I just want to doodle something stupid.
It looks bad. It looks dumb. I might not do anything with it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So if
the problem is when you do warm-ups and you don't know about that, and because you're late with a deadline or something, and say, oh no, I'm going straight to the drawing, and you spend a whole day working on that, and it goes to the garbage, and you realize you have to give them. So
oh God, yes.
Happens to me all the time.
Yeah, that's gotta be frustrating. We're almost out of time here, but I just have a quick question for all of you, if you all want to just quickly go through this. What is one piece of advice that you would tell a young artist getting started on their journey that you wish you knew at the beginning of your professional creative process?
Learn the basics. Build a good foundation. Everything else after that will come. Just you got to build yourself a good foundation. Like I said, I didn't go to school for it, so I feel like that piece of my foundation, I don't know if you necessarily need to go to school for it. People are talented, but like I don't have what background knowledge might be out there for that, so that might be missing back there. That's additional information that I had to find out on my own and trip across and stumble through. So you build yourself a good foundation, and everything else will come. Everything else will come.
One, for beginning artists out there, create a body of work and post it online. Just don't worry about the Instagram followers. Don't worry about the likes. Don't worry about any of that. Finish something and put it up, because and put it together, because when you look at it, you'll think, okay, I can improve here. Now I'm looking at my work all together. I'm going to keep making more of it because it looks very lonesome up there. Get it out of your sketchbook and onto something that you can see, and then you'll want to make more of it. Find an art community, people who are supportive but will also challenge you. I actually built a little Facebook group called Dr. Fizz Lab for beginner artists and professionals to just post their work. Like, here you go, just post it out.
Oh, that's awesome.
I need critique. I would, you know, whatever it is they need, or they have a question. They're like, hey, how do you do this? How do you use, you know, Clip Studio? People will answer, or they'll say, hey, here's a tutorial for this. Check that out. And also create small goals. A lot of times, you know, beginning artists will want to make their magnum opus, and it's 1,000 pages, and they feel bad because it doesn't look like everything that's out there. Just do something small and manageable. If that means you're only creating 1 image a month because you have a day job and you're going to school and all these other things, that's fine. Keep to your goal, and then double it. Like, keep pushing yourself to just go a little further. If you can't double it, you can only do 1 panel a week, fine, do that. And develop a rhythm, because you are what you repeat. So you're an artist, figure out how much you can produce for yourself, and then work on buying your time back, and then you can work on it more. Don't get discouraged if you see art online and you're just like, why doesn't my work look like that? Why? Maybe because they have, you know, 40 hours a week that they can dedicate just to this. It's okay. You are where you are, you know, on your path, and what you have to say and what you have to make is important. So
yeah,
be patient with yourself.
Eyes on your
And
editor.
Right. And hating your work, it's not going to go away.
Oh, never. God, no.
You will always hate how inadequate your skills are. That push it, but that if you use that, if you harness that every day, that pushes you to get better. I would say use storytelling, work on pages for portfolios. That's one of the biggest things I see doing reviews is pinups won't get you a job. Not in comics. You need pages. Storytelling. There are so many books out about just storytelling. Learn the rules, learn cinematic. There's books on cinematic storytelling. I think your storytelling is going to get you the job, I think, first. That and perspective. Perspective, anatomy, storytelling. Two things are the most important. Pages.
Very true.
I like one thing that Afua said is important is that to socialize in some way, maybe posting the images of on the net or wherever, or making friends that like what you see or whatever, because this is a very lonely job and you need other people's eyes on it to get improved, and you need a good critic of your work to improve also. So it's very important to gather with people that could have an objective critic of your work. That's what I see.
And a mentor always helps.
Yeah, not only mentor, I'm talking about other eyes as readers that understand what you want to tell. That I mean, there is something that when I was starting with this, one teacher I had said, you can't be beside the reader telling him, okay, here this people is doing this thing, or wants to tell him that. I mean, it has to be read by itself. So it's important to have a third people eye of the work, to at least to know it's understandable, then to see what doesn't look that good, because the people, the guys, the kids, when they're starting drawing, there used to be the kid who draws well at school or in the family and something. When once they want to do that for a living, they crash against the wall of the professionalism, which is another path. And it's a long path, and you have to improve a lot, work a lot, draw every day. I mean, all the time you can. And as Afua said, I mean, all the time available for you to do that. That is, I mean, it depends a lot of how much time everybody has. And that's what I wanted to point.
That's a good point. And if you don't have someone critically look at your work, you'll never see the mistakes. You'll just keep repeating the mistakes over and over and over again. So showing it, sending it to editors. I know a lot of editors that would receive artwork if you sent it to them, and they used to have that policy at Marvel. I think they still do a submission policy. I'm not quite sure, but you need to have an editor and be open to criticism. Be open to it. You know, don't furrow your brow. I know I've had, when I was younger, I had a couple of years that really broke me down. I didn't want to do it anymore. But I also was like, no, what does he know? But he was right on almost everything looking back. So taking criticism and putting it out there to be criticized by the right people, obviously, is important.
Yeah, because it's another person's opinion, of course, that's always going to go through your mind. You're like, well, I meant to do that. And it's like, but you're making artwork and other people are interpreting it. So they're just telling you what it is that they're seeing when they look at your work. It's nothing personal. And so hard to not take it personally because it's art. It's art. It's from you. But like, try not to like, like, well, just be easy and just let it come. And if it makes sense to you, or if it doesn't make sense, it's okay to ask for clarification. Like, well, what do you mean by this? Because sometimes someone will give a really vague critique and just like, study anatomy. It's just like, okay, well, can you let me know if they have time? Can you let me know where anatomically I'm off? And if it's something where it's just like, you just don't have enough experience drawing the body or whatever it is that you're drawing, then sometimes it just comes with time. It's not just a trick that you learn and then automatically you know it. You're creating grooves in your mind that help you through time increase your mental vision, so that it's no longer about getting something right, but you're getting the idea of it in a way that you can communicate it to someone else effectively, the way that you want to. So it doesn't have to look perfect, because that doesn't exist. It doesn't have to look realistic. It doesn't have to look exactly like this other thing. It just has to be convincing enough. And that means knowing your subject and then being able to choose how you want to represent it. So
that's super helpful. I'm gonna go make a really bad painting and do nothing with it. Y'all inspire me. Well, thank you so much for joining WonderCon and Image Comics to talk about your art. I really appreciate you taking the time out to just tell us a little bit more about what your process is. It's super helpful. We so appreciate it. And thank you to all of you for watching for WonderCon. Remember that you can order through your local comic book shop Everybody's Book here, Stray Dogs, Crossover, The Good Asian, Aquarius, Book of Mer, and the Old Guard. They're new arcs specifically, but all the Old Guard arcs in general. You can get those. You can order them through your local comic book shop. They need our support more than ever, for sure. And that's it for today. Thank you so much, everyone. So appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was great.
Bye.
Bye.